Hi, I'm Jared Lombardo, and welcome to episode 10 of the Conventional Podcast. SHUX is a board gaming convention held each autumn in Vancouver, BC, and this episode was recorded on-site during the show.
Hey, my name is Bonnie. I go by the handle of Skimblecat. Here at SHUX, I'm one of the co-managers of the security team. We call ourselves the response team. At other shows, I have managed security teams. I have managed board game areas at other shows. Yeah, I do a little bit of everything. I was a director of gaming for a local show in Victoria for a while. So I do a little bit of everything at shows.
So how did you get involved in conventions generally, and then more specifically in like the security and safety staffs at these shows?
Years ago, I think it was 2010, a couple of my friends were big PAX goers for PAX West, PAX Prime. We called it PAX back in the day. And they talked me into coming as an attendee. And I really liked it. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And so then they decided that I should volunteer. And I volunteered for Tabletop that year. That was the year of Halo Fest. I will never forget that. That is burned into my brain for all eternity. And the following year, when I put in my application to enforce again, we had PAX Dev, the developers conference, and I volunteered for that one as well. And on my application, I noted that I had previous security experience. I used to work as a security guard in a previous lifetime. And so the manager at the time asked me if I would join, as they called it, their secret cabal and run security for PAX Dev. And then they immediately also recruited me onto the PAX Prime security team. And so I worked for them for, I think, 4 or 5 years. I was PAX's safety and security manager for Dev, and then just part of the regular safety team at PAX Prime.
And then from that experience, now what are some of the other shows you're working currently?
I worked last year, Geek Girl Con. I helped co-manage their response team, I believe they call it, reaction team on that one. I get all the names. We all start to get a little confusing for a while. So yeah, I volunteered 1 year, and I was just on their reaction team. And then the following year, they had a bit of a shakeup, and I helped co-manage that one. I wanted to come back this year, but it's expensive. I live in Victoria, BC, and it's expensive to travel down to Seattle, so I just couldn't afford it. But, and again, just through knowing enforcers, we're a fairly tight-knit community. I retired from being an enforcer, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, but the close-knit people are still part of my family. And so I got introduced to the people that run Evergreen Tabletop Expo in Tacoma, and I went down there, and I was their free play lead 2 years in a row. That's how I got invited to do the reaction team at Geek Girl Con. Yeah, and then locally in Victoria, for many years, we had a show called GotaCon, and some friends of mine were their organizers. So very similar story. I went as an attendee, and then just because of who I am, I can't help but try and fix problems. And so then they invited me back, and I was their volunteer manager for a few years, and then I was their board game manager for a few years, and then that one shut down. And another group had decided the year GotaCon folded, they started a new show called Lantasy, and I came on board as one of their co-directors, and I ran their board game area, and then I became in the second year their director of all gaming, all reported to me. So
all your experiences in the gaming community, so tabletop or video gaming?
Yeah, primarily tabletop.
What are some of the biggest challenges with the security work at gaming cons?
Honestly, in gaming conventions, as a rule, security is actually not that hard. The nice thing for us is that we're all nerds and we're all gamers, and our hobby is to follow rules. So 9 times out of 10, if there's an incident, it's simply somebody not understanding the rule. And if you can explain it to them, then they're fine. There's very few things I've ever had to deal with that wasn't solvable by a simple conversation. One of my biggest challenges is I'm a small woman. I'm 5'2", but yet I'm the hard ass that you have to look out for. Right? Because this is my job. Everybody's safety and security is my job. But I think a lot of times people will look at me and dismiss me, and then I just have to kind of step up and bring my presence, and suddenly they realize that, no, okay, this is the person you need to listen to. So the biggest issues at conventions are excitable people, right? Nobody's out here being malicious as a rule. I mean, obviously there are some, but most of the time it's just people really excited about doing what they love, and they just get too excited and they forget the rules, and they forget that there's other people around them, right? And that kind of stuff. So.
At any of these shows, particularly, I guess, when you were a director, have you been involved in like generating the code of conduct or other rules?
I was for Lantasy. When I came on board, it didn't have a code of conduct, and that was one of the things I insisted on before I came on board as a director, and they were great. They were immediately, oh, yes, please do. The nice thing with the code of conduct, particularly for gaming conventions, is there are 3 or 4 sites out there. If you just Google it, there's a couple out there that I swear we all use the same template, and we base it off of there. And we just add to it. And so for Fantasy, I'd taken that, and then I'd taken Gotacon's one and just sort of improved on it a little bit. And then this year, actually, at SHUX, they did a phenomenal job on their code of conduct. It's probably the most impressive one I've ever seen. And so I've already bookmarked it to steal it if I need one for any future shows, because they did a great job on this one. I'm really impressed by this. So yeah, there's lots of resources out there, and all of them are publicly available. Like Gen Con, Geek Girl Con has a great one as well, right? You can just look around and look at what everybody else did and just copy and paste the parts that you want in yours. And it gives you a great basis. It's better than nothing.
Well, so what are some of the things that make a good code of conduct, and what are some of the things that you like? You know, you said that the SHUX code of conduct is one of the very best you've seen. Why is it one of the best?
It's a fine line when you're writing a code of conduct. You can't list every possible scenario of what could go wrong, but you do want it to be fulsome enough, right? So it can't be, the old, what was the old PAX one? Will Wheaton's line, don't be a dick, right? Don't be evil, Google's line. It can't be that small, but you also can't spend 12 pages listing every possible thing that might offend somebody, right? You have to be able to bucket it into reasonable things, and it's that reasonable person test, right? Would a reasonable person read this policy and understand exactly what it meant? So it's the biggest ones are just the listing of things like everybody knows, you don't touch somebody without permission, and you cannot discriminate based on age or sex. Well, you know what? There's gender identity. There's so many more things than what we used to look at, and just make a point of listing a lot of those. It's a little thing to most of us, but it means the world to those that this implies. And so if I can write a couple extra lines in the code of conduct that makes somebody feel that much safer and knows that I acknowledge them, then it's worth it, right? So, because my biggest thing is I want everybody to have a good time at my show, right? And it's my job to make it welcoming and inclusive as possible. So whatever I can do to help somebody, that's why I'm here.
What has drawn you to the gaming community in particular? Are you just an avid board game player, or? Yeah,
I do a little bit of video gaming, but that's my solo playtime. I'm actually a huge tabletop gamer, board games and pen and paper RPGs. And what I love about our community and our gaming style is that we are the social ones. I'm sitting around my dining room table 3 or 4 nights a week with friends, sharing a shared social experience of playing this game. And that's what I love. I look out, we're sitting here at SHUX 2018, as I forget what year it is for a moment. And there's hundreds of people out here playing games together, and complete strangers will go up to each other and say, hey, do you have a seat? Or there's a balloon saying, I'm looking for players. This is what I love. I could watch this for days. People sitting down, being social with each other in real time, in real space. Total strangers just talking to each other and sharing the experience of a board game. That is my favorite thing in the world. I love it.
Yeah, it's wonderfully empowering to be enabling other people to have such rich social experiences.
Exactly, yes.
It can be, super fun. Like, that's why I'm in conventions too.
Right, exactly. This is how I give back to my hobby. I've been fortunate. I've met a large number of game designers, particularly in the Seattle area, a lot of RPG designers. And they're amazing game designers, but at this point in my life, I don't see me ever making a game or anything like that. So this is how I give back to my hobby, right? This is the thing I love most in the world. So this is how I help others and other people enjoy it, right?
Yeah. Like, I don't think of myself as a creative person.
Exactly.
But I'm really good at operational things. Yes. So I can give back operationally.
Totally. You point me at a problem and I will solve that problem for you to make sure your game, your convention is running smoothly, right? Just point me at the problem and I'll fix it for you. So.
Yeah, that's such an excellent attitude too. Are there any specific incidences that have occurred at your shows that you think, looking back, you should have handled a very different way to have provided a better experience overall?
Yeah, I mean, nothing super specific, but I try and learn from every single thing that happens. I try and be as open and aware as I can, but I am a middle-class, cisgendered white woman, right? That makes me pretty much the second most privileged class in the world. And so there are things that, again, I do without thinking, right? So I just try and be super aware and learn. If I make a mistake, I own it. I apologize. It's not about me and making the mistake. It's about making the other person as comfortable as possible. So a couple years ago at a show, there was someone on the spectrum that had an unfortunate incident happen with them, and they asked me to deal with it. And I had absolutely no idea what to do from a formal training point of view. But so I just sat with them and we chatted, right? And for an hour, because that's what they needed. And so I was happy to do that. But from that, I learned, okay, you know what? I think I need to do some research. I need to, just figure out what are the top 5 things I can do in this situation, that sort of thing. Often there's, the what do we call them? The microaggressions often happen at conventions, right? Misgendering people, that sort of thing. I need to be better and have sort of a standard answer for that kind of situation. Sometimes I get a little too passionate about it as well, right? Like, again, I want everybody to feel as safe as welcoming. And so I need to make sure I don't come across as the security person too harshly to the accused, for lack of a better, for the alleged person. So there's always learning. There's always things like that I need to improve on. So, but that's personal growth.
Well, so specifically, you said, you need a general way to handle a microaggression sort of situation.
Yeah.
What do you do? What is your...
You know what? I wing it, which is terrible because there's got to be a better thing. But one of the nice things about me is that I'm a small woman. I have multicolored hair. I wear toe shoes, and I'm very outgoing. And so I will just go up and wing it and start talking to people. I want everybody to be friends, right? So I do my best to not come across as very confrontational in the security thing. I always, always, always believe the person who has reported it. There's never a doubt, but there are two sides to a story, and I need to get both. But so I try very hard to the person who has allegedly, done a code of conduct violation. I'm not coming across as, hey, you did something wrong, right? I want to come across and say, okay, you know what? What happened? Let's talk this through. And now I forgot actually if that was your question.
No, that was great.
Okay, good.
When you're dealing with incidences, are you keeping track of the incidences? Are there reporting forms or other things like that? How do you go from there in the long term to help prevent them next time?
Exactly, because you have to look for patterns, right? Because patterns is how we solve things. Different shows, do different things. I've worked shows where we've had nothing, and we just hope we remember it. I've worked shows where it's noted on a piece of paper. There's another show where we're creating a logbook, basically. And from the littlest thing all the way up, like the fact that, a door was propped open, or even an operational thing like the water coolers weren't filled as fast as possible, all the way up to, code of conduct violations. We've decided that we're going to start logging this thing year to year because, again, then we can find patterns. And, yeah, if we start to notice certain things happening over and over again, then we can come across with a standard response. And that way anyone on my team knows exactly what to say. And we have a consistent messaging, because that's really important. As an attendee, nothing would frustrate me more than getting two different answers about something from two different people. So let's get some formalized processes. I work for government. I'm a documentation nerd, right? I'm all about formalized processes and documentation. So let's do that. Let's create a logbook and get some standard pat answers for things and how to respond to things. So
yeah, that's one thing. One of the other shows I work, Nondisc, on is an anime show in Denver, and we have an operations log for going back like 20 years now.
That would be amazing. There would be some phenomenal data in that.
Everything that the security team does gets put in the ops log.
Which it should be.
Everything that, now we've got it hooked up to our Slack, everything that you Slack to a certain channel automatically gets logged.
Nice.
And anybody who comes to the operations window, which is like info booth and con operations.
Yep. Anybody
who comes to the window with pretty much anything, we keep track of that just to know what's going on.
Nice.
And using that, we can build a really rich history of how how a venue feels for the attendees.
Yes.
Because, we do long-term contracts at different hotels in the Denver area.
Right.
And having all that data makes it much easier to provide that consistent positive experience year over year.
Yeah. And I think another big thing too for convention organizers is talk to each other. Right? Like security teams within different conventions, or just the organizers overall. You know what? Whatever you're going through, pretty much somebody else has been through it already. So let's just start talking more. Let's form more communities. I know there's some out there. I'm on a Facebook group actually for tabletop gaming convention organizers. And it's great because a new convention will come on board and go, what have we done about, has anybody encountered this before? And like 17 of us have gone, oh yeah, you know what? We use this, or we found this software worked, or whatever. Just start talking. Let's form a better community of practice. Right? So, yeah, because why reinvent the wheel? It sounds like that convention has an amazing logbook system, like, for tracking this. Why do I need to reinvent one now, right? Like, let's see what other people are doing.
What you just described that Facebook for, like, that's a big part of why I do this podcast, is I want to collect the experiences of these organizers that I know or know of, and then be able to share their content with the world. And, like, I know people who are running small tech conferences who are listening, and they're gaining knowledge about how to better run their tech conference from things that I've told them about interviews on gaming conferences and other things.
It's all about sharing your knowledge, right?
Yeah, community practice is a really hard thing to grow, though.
It is. Like, at least I come from an era where your knowledge meant you had value, so you never wanted to share that. because suddenly if I taught you what I know, then you could take my job or whatever. But as I got older, I realized that is utter crap, man. Share the information. We're all out here doing the same thing. We're not competing. Even if you're the same show in the same town as me, and we're fighting over the same attendees, I want your show to be as safe and secure as possible too. So let me help you. I'm happy to. It's not personal, right? Like we all have our areas of expertise. Let's talk to each other more.
Yeah. Building communication is great. What are some things that you've done in that space? Like, is it just that Facebook group, or are you actively trying to build connections with other
within
cons?
Victoria, we were actively trying. The last show I was involved in, there was a competing show that started, and we initially came on board with them to try and help them out and give them some direction. Hey, we've run shows in the venue you're about to go into. Let us help you. It became a little bit political and ended up not working out, but it's something I've been thinking about, particularly with SHUX. I mean, this is such an amazing show, and there's a phenomenal show staff that help run this. And we're lucky in that many of the people here are either enforcers from PAX or past enforcers. So there is a huge body of knowledge here. And so let's communicate more throughout the year, right? And I know for a fact that if I were to start another show locally in Victoria, that I could reach out to any one of these people, right, and say, hey, this is, the issue I'm coming across. What have you guys done before? So unfortunately, right now, it's very informal kind of, who do I know, who could I go to? But I'm not sure what the solution is to fix things. I mean, this Facebook group is great, but not everybody's on Facebook. And we know Facebook can be a total butt about showing you things, right? So I'm not sure what the solution is. Where is the be-all, end-all place to put this kind of information? But I sure wish there was something there.
Well, no one's ever going to agree on a platform.
It's true. No, you're right. Especially nerds. We're all nerds, and yeah, that's never going to happen.
Yeah. At the upcoming shows you're going to be working in, like, the next year, are there any specific things that you're really excited for?
I'm actually not working as many shows as I used to anymore. So I'm doing Shut Up and Sit Down. And then in January in Bellevue, Washington, I've been invited to come help out at OrcaCon, which is another phenomenal show if you're in the Seattle-ish area. It's so welcoming and open and diverse. It's awe-inspiring. Donna, the person who runs that show, she was like an unofficial mentor for me with my last show of Fantasy on what I would like to see my show grow up and be. So I think that's actually the only two I'll be working currently will be OrcaCon and SHUX. I've been going to Origins for a couple years, so I'm going to go back to Origins again next year. But yeah, I've actually slowed down quite a bit in the number of shows I volunteer at. Like I said earlier, I live in Victoria, BC, and there's no cheap way off my island. And so it becomes very expensive to start helping out at too many shows.
If you'd like listeners to reach out, how should they contact you?
I'm on Twitter at SkimbleCat. You can reach me by email, and my first initial last name are a whole bunch of letters that sound all the same. So hopefully there'll be show notes, and we could write this down. Good, because it's BBEYEA@gmail, but all those letters sound the same. So good luck with that.
Well, so that's what the NATO alphabet is for?
Yeah, exactly. So yes, Bravo, Echo, Yankee, Echo Alpha @gmail.com. And I'm happy to answer any questions or help anybody out.
Actually, back to NATO alphabet, that's the thing. One of the shows I run, we do a lot of communication via radio, but it's with people who often have never been at a conference.
Right.
And they're on the radio running a room for me on a huge, giant convention center. And so one of the things in my training documents is I teach the NATO alphabet. So they're never in Ballroom B. They're always in Bravo 1 or Bravo East or whatever it is.
Yes.
Because over the radio, it's so hard.
You cannot tell the difference. You have no idea. Yes.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Bonnie.
Yeah, no, I was happy to. This was really fun.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Show notes and a feedback form are available at conventionalpodcast.com, and you can reach out to me on Twitter at conventionalpod or by email at conventionalpodcast@gmail.com. Please let me know if you have any comments about the show or suggestions for guests. Thanks for listening.